Hey, I'm back. Uh, it's been a minute. It's been a while, I admit it. I took a sabbatical, extended one, and whether this is your first time here or you followed me from Chicago into the Sparrow's Call and Voices in the Wilderness, I'm back now with a new direction, new show, Notes from the Wilderness, which is, I guess you'd say, dispatches from the edge of faith, or notes from the other side of certainty. Um, I'm not here to build a church or rebuild a church or talk people back into the church. This is a space for people who don't feel comfortable there, people who've either left on their own or kind of been driven out because they had questions that went unanswered, or they were shunned for even thinking those questions. And they didn't have what the deconstructing mamas like to call grace and space to share their doubt or their confusion. I've been there. I've walked that path, and I've left Plato's cave as well. And so I'm not here with all the answers. I'm here just to share some of the questions I've had, some of the better questions that oftentimes do go unanswered, or that get you scarlet lettered from your old faith community. So if you want to join me, come along every week about 10 a.m. Arizona time, which never changes with daylight savings. But we'll all get used to it. And if not, you can catch us later on YouTube or Facebook. And you could suggest questions you'd like me to cover. And sometimes I might just riff off of something that's happened this week. And why did I step away and for so long? I don't really have a good answer for that, other than it wasn't because I didn't want to be here or that I wanted to get away from you. It was that I needed to breathe and take an audit of where I am and where I want to go. I know more what isn't true or what can't be true of a loving God, if God exists, than I do of... I'm always skeptical of people who want to tell us all they know about God and how certain they are. We've been there and done that. We're kind of like the people who got the email from our long-lost uncle in Nigeria who's just passed away, and we're the rightful heir to his multi-million-dollar legacy. If only we'd just share, our routing number for our bank account and our social security number, and we could appreciate all that inheritance. And once you've been burned by that, it's an email, then you're skeptical of all emails. And I'm here to tell you, we don't need to be. We've been burned, but we don't need to be jaded. So this is going to be an attempt to kind of overturn some of that, kind of to say, there are certain voices we can trust. And there are certain voices that we need to be rightly skeptical of. And I'm sure that we probably have some in mind. I just wanted to let you know, though, that you're not alone. And you're not broken. You're not a troublemaker for thinking those thoughts that you have or asking the questions that you have. It's pretty common. But you might just be in the wilderness like me. You've been threatened with the slippery slope. And now we're taking it for a ride. I'm just telling you that this is just a note from the bottom of the slide. It's not so bad down here or out here. I like to think of my journey as a climb and not as a slippery slope. I think I'm grateful for it, actually. You come out of Plato's cave, and at first the light is blinding, and our light our eyes need to adjust, and we are feeling disoriented, and we're wondering, what can we trust, and where do we go? And some of these questions we've never had before, because we've been told what we can trust and where we're going, and where we're going if we don't trust, right? So this might be new to some of you, and new can be scary. It doesn't have to be. But it always is a challenge. You know, I was one who moved a lot as a child, and being the new kid in school has some privileges and some liabilities. And we'll talk about that as we move forward. So this new series, Notes from the Wilderness, is going to look at some of the questions that we've had and still have. And in a world that seems to have gone mad, a world that seems to have turned upside down. I know with evangelical Christians, there are a lot of you out there who are triggered by the word evangelical or even Christian. It's one of the reasons we've decided to leave church without walls behind. I was grateful for it at the time, but I realized that even the word church can be triggering to some of us who've left the church or who are healing from trauma from the church. And so I've decided not only to give up the walls, but to give up the roof and the steeple, and to walk among my people. I'll just say this, maybe this metaphor will work for you. Some of you know who Father Malachi was. He was just a wonderful person. He made it his ministry in the Hawaiian Islands to treat a leper colony, and he ministered to them. And one day, pouring a hot cup of tea, he spilled on himself. I believe it was his leg. And he was alarmed to have no feeling of it. He didn't jump because it burned or seared his skin. And in that instant, he knew that he was now more than simply a minister to lepers. He was a leper. Now, Wendy and I left our ministry in Illinois, where I pastored a church for 20 years, and we decided to pursue the nuns and the duns because we cared. And the strange thing is in the community we were in evangelical Christianity, very few people care about who leave. They usually attack them for leaving. They say they weren't real Christians, or, you know, they're not of the elect, or, you know, they never were a Christian, or they just, some of the justifications they use just to wash their hands of us is that, well, we just want to go after our peculiar sin preferences, and we don't want to be under the judgment of a God. They never stop to ask, well, what if we still believe in God? And what if it's a little closer to home and something uncomfortable that they don't want to uncover? What if we stopped eating at that restaurant because we've seen how the kitchen looks? Yeah, those are tough questions. But normally when somebody leaves a church or even leaves a faith, they're attacked. And Wendy and I decided not to do that. We decided to go after our brother in the far country. We decided that when Jesus Christ told the story, the tri-parable in Luke 15 of the lost sheep and the lost coin, and finally the lost brother or the lost son, that he was trying to encourage a group of uncaring, indifferent Pharisees that if they were truly of the Father and about the Father's business, they wouldn't be standing on a corner judging. They'd be going into the far country to find their brother and to bring them back to the Father's table. They'd be slaying the fatted calf. They'd be setting the table. They'd be washing his feet and falling on his neck as the Father would have it. So Wendy and I pursued that, and we walked long enough with the nuns and the duns to realize that they actually weren't misgiven. It wasn't that their observations were right and their conclusions were wrong for the most part. It was that maybe their conclusions were correct as well. So anyway, what does that mean? Am I still a Christian? Do I still call myself an evangelical? Do I still believe in God? All these questions and more we will consider in the weeks going forward. And I encourage you to come along for the ride. Heat up a cup of coffee, grab a bagel, and I will see you next Sunday. I did miss you. I didn't stop because of burnout. I stopped to collect myself, to catch my breath, and to figure out a new way forward. And I think I've done that with the help of my wife and my children and some of my counselors, and frankly, in response to some of you who said, when are you going to come back on Sunday? I'm back. I know some people aren't eager. That's not good news. That's not gospel news to some people, but that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. And as my father used to say, every Sunday in the pulpit, we welcome all those who come in peace. I will say this is kind of an after the altar reflection. Hope you join us next week. We'll see you then.